My name is Mark Anderson. I'm an alcoholic. I had moved from Washington, D.C. to Arizona. I'd been out here a while. I'd gotten married. My wife and I were trying to have children, and we couldn't. And it took us 5 years and eventually 2 tries with in vitro fertilization. And now I have twins, Chance and Garrick, at a really big Fortune 50 brokerage company. I thought I was, hot stuff. I owned 3 houses. I had, 3 Mercedes, all the things that you think you get by working really hard. And I was given an opportunity to stay home with the kids for 4 years because they were born premature. Garrick was the size of a can of soda and Chance was the size of a water bottle. And so they were tiny when they came home. I blew up my career of 10 years at a brokerage company, lost my job as a manager because I got drunk. I had a split schedule. I worked 4x10s. And so I was off part of the weekend and then worked part of the weekend and off part of the week. And so I decided to get drunk and didn't go to work. And by that point, my drinking had really accelerated as I became a manager and just was under so much pressure. I lost all my licenses that I had worked years to get. Stayed home with the boys for 4 years. They grew up. They're now 11. They're healthy, wonderful, beautiful boys. And because I lost all my licenses, I couldn't go back to work as a broker without starting over. So I went into banking and ended up losing my job. I worked for a large bank you've probably heard of, and I got laid off twice by the same bank. But I guess by the fact of just sheer will and the fact that I was scared and didn't want to drink and had a good sponsor and went to meetings and did all the things I was supposed to, had a service commitment and so forth, I stayed sober. Unfortunately, my commitment to AA and more importantly, my commitment to my program started to cause a problem in my marriage as my ex-wife got jealous of the time that I was away and didn't like me going out Saturday nights to see a speaker and so forth. And so I kept cutting back a little bit and a little bit and a little bit on my sobriety and all the things that I was doing, for my program, going to meetings and everything. And eventually I wasn't doing anything. And that lasted about 4 years. And fast forward, my wife and I are getting a divorce. We lost the 3 houses. I lost the 3 Benzes. I kept one as a daily driver and eventually sold it. We had used my retirement to live on or to supplement our living those 4 years when I was a stay-at-home dad. So we didn't really have a lot. And you wouldn't think that we would be fighting this hard over the divorce. I replaced alcohol with sex and thought that was going to be better, and it didn't. It just put me under a tremendous amount of pressure. I had moved to another bank by this time, the bank I'm with now, that is extremely employee focused and centric. And they're so supportive of people that have issues with addiction and alcohol, which is good for me because I would not be sitting here today in a nice house that we're renting. We don't own yet. We're working our way back to owning a house. My girlfriend / fiance, we've been together 4 years. I met her after my wife and I had filed the paperwork, and they don't get along. So we try not to keep them anywhere in the same zip code. Just the pressure of the divorce and everything that was going on. And it was so nasty and unnecessary and hurtful that I didn't have a program. I didn't have a sponsor that I was talking to on a regular basis. I had hundreds of names of people in my phone from 9 years of being sober, but I didn't call anybody. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I didn't pray. I got to ABT and drove me to this house in Scottsdale, North Scottsdale, that's got to be a $3 million house. And I thought, are we in the right place? I mean, do I belong here? Needless to say, I was 3 sheets to the wind, well over 0.3, so much so that they ended up sending me to the hospital to detox because I was too inebriated to stay at ABT. And I got out of the hospital and I came back and I started the program and I knew what I was supposed to do. I'd been sober 9 years. I'd had sponsees. I wasn't successful with most of them, but I had sponsees. I had spoken at meetings. I had done the deal, so to speak, and I knew what to do. But I didn't know what to do when I crawled in my head and when I went down that rabbit hole. And so all of these pressures that are on me, when I was at ABT in rehab, my ex-wife served me papers and tried to take away my parental rights. I had to go and stand before a judge and she said, I don't see anything wrong with you, Mark, other than you're in rehab and you're fixing alcoholism or trying to. So then I had to suffer through the indignity of task testing, random alcohol testing at my own expense, which I thought was unnecessary. And I stayed at ABT for 4 months. And, I knew every staff member and I had talked to most of them. And for a while there, I was living in my car, my little Kia Sorento. I had all my possessions packed in there. By that point, Stacy and I had broken up and we weren't things were just not working out. It was getting even worse with my ex-wife. I liked to paint in my free time. She had taken all my paintings and put them in a barbecue pit and lit them on fire. I ended up at a flea bag motel off of I-17 and thought that, maybe trying to drink myself to death would be a good idea. And that didn't work. When I drink, I'm mean. I'm not violent. I don't hurt people, but I say terrible things and I don't remember them. And I have a really razor tongue. After I've been at ABT 4 months, you get used to the routine. You're living in the residence, you're eating great, you're working out every day. You've developed some really good friendships. You're going to meetings. And so I got to ABT and I was broken, but I knew how to fix myself. And I thought, well, I can do this. And I bounced along the bottom for some time, and I'd get sober and I'd stay sober. And I think, you get to the point where it's just like in your bones, you're just so weary and worn out that you'll sit there and think of alcohol and you'll say, it's just not worth it. It helped that I had made so many different connections with people and with staff at ABT, and say anything. They just text me or message me and they're like, I ended up spilling my guts and telling my kids all about my disease and my recovery and being at ABT. And the second time was even better, even though I was only there for 2 months and it was a shorter period, because I didn't spend a lot of time sort of doing those, that's my dog, doing those AA rehab 101 kind of conversations that you have with the staff. They literally came and took me out of my apartment and put my clothes in a plastic shopping bag, which amounted to, one pair of pants, one pair of skivvies, a t-shirt, and that was it. I went to rehab with, 3 items of clothing. I went to the ER 4 times for wildly exceeding alcohol poisoning, and was put on a ventilator once, and got tied down to the bed because I tried to escape, running down the hall with blood shooting everywhere and my little gown open at the back, thinking that I was going to make it, and then of course 4 big guys tackled me, and she called the nurses to check on me, and they said, he's been a very, very bad boy, and then when I got sent to the hospital the next time, they didn't even bother asking me. They just tied me to the bed with padlocks. I was like, what the hell? Last time it was, surgical tubing. Now you got these leather, big leather belts with padlocks on them. From that point on, sort of the rest of that time, the second month, the 2-month time that I was at ABT I probably did more coming to acceptance, I guess. I don't know how else you'd put it. It's I finally saw who I was and what I was. And finally had to sit there and admit, I can't BS my way out of this. I can't charm my way out of this. If I don't learn how to be comfortable with me, I don't have that much stuff to my name. It fits in an SUV, which was currently parked on ABT property. I didn't have anywhere to put my car. I was on the street and I was afraid it was going to get towed or impounded or whatever. And so ABT let me park my car behind one of their houses on their property for 4 months, which those instances of ABT acting like they went and got my car from my ex-wife's driveway because she was throwing such a tantrum after she'd agreed to let me keep the car there while I was in treatment. Yeah, there was not good blood there. So ABT went and got my car, arranged for transportation to go get the car, make sure it was fine, park it, took care of everything. When I was in treatment the first time, I didn't have a place to live. Somehow I managed to get back together with Stacy right before the end of that first treatment of 4 months, and we wanted to find a place to live. And ABT actually arranged for me to have a day pass in the middle of the week to go look at apartments to find a place to live, which we did, fortunately. I get released after 4 months, I make it 10 days, and I drink. Stacy packs a suitcase and walks out the door, and that's it. Which of course throws me into a tailspin, and I end up in treatment the second time. I would always hold back something because I was arrogant, and I thought, I can somehow get this. Not that I can drink normally again. I didn't worry about that or think that I could do that. But I was always thinking, I don't have to deal with the voices. That's not me. That's someone that's dealing with, heroin or, a hardcore drug, not alcohol. And it wasn't until I started talking to a lot of people in the program that, yeah, Mark, we have it all the time. The voices just get less frequent and less loud, but they're there. And if you stop doing the things that keep you sober, sobriety to me is like spaghetti sauce. So everybody's spaghetti sauce is different, right? Some people put garlic in it, some people put ground beef in it, peppers, whatever. But everybody has their own recipe for making spaghetti sauce, just like everybody has their own recipe for what sobriety looks like for them. So when I was a stay-at-home dad, I couldn't go to a lot of meetings because I was there for the kids. They were infants. So I did other things to make up for the fact that I couldn't go to more than 2 or 3 meetings a week. So I had to go back to something that simple this time and realize, Mark, I hate to say it, but the voices and the bad thoughts, it's in everybody's spaghetti sauce. And then you realize that those conversations get less and less and less frequent. And then you get to the point where you're like, you know what? I don't have to be afraid of those voices. They're there. And every once in a while they pop up. One's popped up this weekend. Somebody was talking about, I'm not drinking yet. They were on a TV show. And the thought crossed my mind, hey, a cold beer wouldn't sound bad. I never had a problem with beer. It was always liquor that got me in trouble. I like drinking gallons of vodka. A cold beer, it's hot in Arizona. Come on. And then I had to sit there and I had to tell Stacy, you know what? I just had a bad thought. And she's like, what? I was like, I just thought that a cold beer would really sound good. She's like, you can't do that, Mark. Because she has told me, if you drink again, we will be done. I don't know how many times I relapsed. I didn't call anybody. People would say, did you call anybody? No. Did you pray? No. What'd you do? I drank more. You just have to go in and just say, I'm done. I give up. I'm like a little child and you're going to take care of me. And that's exactly what they do. That's what they did for me at ABT. They took care of everything. I didn't have to worry about things. Just call somebody. I guarantee the person that picks you up in that car and drives you to wherever it is you're going has been there and worse. They've peed in their pants just like you have. They've passed out, they've blacked, they've done all of that. And every single person that I can think of when I was at ABT had been there and done that. From the people that were working on the cleaning crew, the janitorial crew, to the guys that were working in transportation, to the counts, everybody had been there. Their drugs were different, their length of sobriety was different, but every single person had been there. And some of them had lost everything and rebuilt their lives 2 and 3 times over. There's absolutely no shame in saying, I can't do this. And it took me a long time. I'm not a huge athlete, I'm not famous, but I'm arrogant as shit. I have an ego and I refuse to relinquish control. And it wasn't until alcohol had just beat me into a point where there was nothing left. And I said, okay, you do it. People that I would not have normally been associated with in any way, shape, or form. I don't care who comes and picks you up, tattoos, no tattoos, ponytail, whatever it is, they've been there and worse. Just sit in the car, put on your seatbelt, just shut up and let them do everything. They'll take care of you. I was willing to listen to somebody more than once, and I went to ABT more than once. And it took more than one time, but it finally worked. It'll always be part of who I am. But now I have so many people, I had to admit at work that I was an alcoholic because I was honest in every part of my life except at work. Well, that's not complete honesty. Well, once I admitted it at work, guess what? That department of 100 people that I work in, there's about 35 or 40 people that are actively in recovery or have a family member in recovery. I had people walking up to me in the break room going, hey, what was the last meeting you went to? How was it? Or, my son just went into rehab last week, say a prayer for him. People will protect you and hold you in the palm of their hand until you can stand up and hold someone else in the palm of your hand. And that's the way it works.